All right, let's jump into it. A little bit later this morning, so what are we at? 12 past 11. So I'll start off with Aussie just because one, it's on the screen, and two, and a very interesting sort of thing I was thinking of, so going back through the videos, I was sort of saying, okay, look, because we cut through this area so quickly over here, where we going to see a fairly fast cut and move back up through here as well? Because this was the point that I was sort of referencing, the two alternatives. One was the fact that between May and July here, we just chopped all the way sideways, up and down, up and down. I mean, like you can just see a very well-defined range through here. But when it came down, I mean, you can see this here, it just absolutely sliced through it all. So charts like to sort of replicate what they've sort of seen in the past. So when you see a sort of choppy area or resistance and these kind of things, you typically, on the other side of the chart, you'll see the same thing as well. So we had this absolute sort of cut down through here, and then obviously, you can see this little bit of a bunch up here before we had that sort of capitulation. Oof, that was, I remember sort of when this was happening, I was like, it was the first day after I got back from Europe, and I'm like, whoa, it's dropping. Whoa, it's dropping. And like every time you sort of flick back on, you look, and it dropped another sort of 20 or 30 or 40 points. That was incredible. And I was just like, oh, I wish I had sort of been at the ready, and I would have loved to have picked some Aussie up sub 64. Oof. What a great move. But typical of Aussie, it loves to do these moves and then squeezes the hell out of it. So we did see a little bit of a sort of push back along through here. You can see, this is where we said the sellers would be, and we could see it happening again. About 40 was our real sort of takeoff line. And this is what I was saying basically all through last week, that once 40 goes, then we're going to see some action. And obviously Friday night, that's when we went and boom, hit that first price target and just kept on cruising through it all. So it's come right back up the top over here. So again, we're back up. I mean, this is such a recovery. If you look at this drop down move here, if we look at this in terms of a sort of where we were at to here, I mean, that's well over the 78%. This is 78% over here. And you can see we're well back up above that. So look, the recovery, these V shapes don't really happen that often. So you know what I mean. The feeling is, of course, it's going to go on and on and on and on. So we just got to pick out some levels where we think it may have a little bit of a cool off. And as you can see, the tops over here, this was a little bit of an area where we, as it was first coming down, tried to hold it, bang, bang, and then boom, away it went. And we can see that, the portion of the market is sort of agreeing that, sort of saying that, okay, maybe around this zone is somewhere to sort of think to sort of cool off a little bit. Obviously, we've got incredible sort of US dollar weakness across the board. We've got commodities that are pumping, and obviously Aussie runs with commodities, it runs with risk. As the US dollar sells off across the board, obviously it's going to be a big benefactor of all these kind of things as well. So, this is why it's really, I mean, look, it's not even pulling back. I mean, we had this little bit of a pullback last week before getting that breakout. But this time now, if you look at this in terms of just this last move here, so again, that's me trying to buy some pullbacks along the way. If we look at it in the sense of sort of like, okay, here's this last move. That was the lows, 50, was it 65, 60 here, and back up to, that's a 200-point move, pretty much in one direction, which is to me a little bit cautious because that generally signifies a little bit squeezy kind of sort of stuff. Like the fact that it's got no position for people to get off, chopping up and down, profits and taking all this. This is all just one direction here. And as you can see, it's consolidating the highs at the moment. So it does look like it wants to sort of go a little bit higher. Like certainly the market's happy to buy it. But if we drag these across here, these are giving us some pretty nice little ledges. If it were to sort of cool off, okay, we got this little, oop, not this one, this little sort of more short-term sort of trend. I guess it's kind of comes off this part here. Um, these are kind of little ledges that, you could see people start to sort of go, okay, and sort of take a little profit. So, look, I'm not ruling out a 67 buy zone. Getting back down underneath that, I mean, look, anything could happen. Aussie's known for very deep pullbacks. 61% we know is very much. And if you look at this breakout here, we never had a back test. I mean, maybe if you drill down onto, let's have a look, this is not 4 hour actually, so. I don't think we even had a we didn't even have a breakout on a half hour. So this is again makes me think that, it could revisit these levels. I mean, like obviously when things are just pumping along, it's very hard to sort of think, wow, what's going to happen and what's it going to be like once price does come back here, if it does. And certainly, at the moment, it's looking like it's just consolidating the highs. I mean, these pullbacks are super, super shallow. You know what I mean? But we are sort of seeing a little bit of a consolidation here. We got, US dollar is tapped down into like a very big support level, which I'll get to in a moment, which I've actually been sort of like signaling out. We took out the yearly open level, and we're down into a big sort of support level. So, there is a good chance that we see a little bit of a dollar rally coming up. And if the dollar rally comes, well, obviously, people are going to sort of cash in their profits, which are straight moves up over here, and we're going to see a little bit of that rebalancing. As to how far down it comes, well, it's hard to sort of say. I can't. I mean, look, I'm not a big fan of this trend line here. I think still it's a little bit steep. As you can see, this one was a bit ridiculous. But I think more the ledges are the ones that we're kind of looking for at the moment, like the 67.16, or I think it actually was 13 technically, but this ledge just here. Let me put a couple of arrows on it. I think he's actually line up with other bits of writing, but whatever. And this one just here. So these are the two levels I'm looking at the moment. So we've got 67.30, let's see, underneath 67.30 and 67.13. I think if you get down under 67.13, we could see a little bit of a deeper sort of pullback. So I don't know if this buy zone will necessarily be such a profitable kind of entry there then, because I mean, we're not even at the 38. So a 38% retracement, still healthy, and that gets you back into the 66.80s. So look, I mean, that's 60 points off here. It's not impossible for it to pull back that much. It certainly, particularly if we do get a bit of a sort of a US dollar buying spree in that. We've got Jackson Hole coming up tomorrow. So we're going to hear sort of what Powell's got to say. We had some very interesting sort of data overnight. So it was something that for some reason didn't show up on my sort of little calendar, this Forex calendar that we use here. So let me just refresh this one here. So it was yeah, just over here. It was like 12 o'clock last night. Basically, it was a recalibration of best way I can describe it is a recalibration of the jobs that were added to the US over the year. So to unpack that a little bit, it's kind of like they do a sort of a bit of an audit on themselves, and they go back and go, oh, you know what? We actually overstated a million jobs, or 800,000, I think it was, 800,000 jobs through the year, which is, first of all, ludicrous, and second of all, not surprising one bit, because let me just jump onto DXY quickly. This is the big support area that we're seeing it sort of bounce into here. So we'll see how this goes. But if we go back, where was this bit more recently, where all the market was, that's March. I think when it was. I think it was this point here, the CPI numbers, and the market was like set for the figures to come in super weak. All the economists came out with a weak number. Everybody, the whole market was positioned for a dollar breakdown to come through here, and lo and behold, they added 300,000 jobs or something. And this is the thing that's sort of like, then it gets revised a month later. And oh, it turns out we didn't actually add 300, we only added 180. It was something along this line, but it was about over 100,000 jobs on that one print, while the whole market is positioned in one thing. And this is just sketch as. It's sort of like, you know what I mean? It's, you got to trade what you're given, but there's no point sort of putting any kind of like sort of thought into your own analysis if, um, you know what I mean? They can just sort of come out with any kind of numbers. And I said this at the time. If you go back and you watch my videos, this is from June. And I said, look, if they revise it next month, which then sort of came out over here or something, and we sort of find out the numbers are revised down, well, it's not going to be a big shocker. And that's what happened. And you can see sort of like here, bang, caught so much of the market out, pushed up over here, And then they revised it, and okay, we've been coming down ever since. And you can see that this is again a little bit of a look. If it was trying to sort of hold some sort of channel, this is capitulation down here because we've broken a couple of things and main trends, all these kind of things. And as you can see, we're coming into this area where we've seen buyers hold it from. This is actually yet last year's lows. I think no, last year's lows are down here. So let's just drag one of these down here so we're ready when it does get down to there. But yeah, we know that the buyers have held it at this point here. It's right back here again. This is the price target that I put in the other week, remember? So here we are, boom, price target smashed. So there's reason for US dollar to get a little bit of buying here. Even if the buying is just short position covering, if people have been sort of selling the US dollar and they want to sort of get out of those positions now because they've, like me, hit the price target, they'll flip to the other side and we'll see a bit of a move back, sort of maybe a couple of days or so moving up through here. Again, it's hard to sort of see these things when it's really just so incredibly weak, but that's when the opportunity comes because so much of the market have been doing it. If you don't, you take your profits, they're going to squeeze the hell out of you. So we'll see how we go with it all. But certainly, you had a little bit of this and then a capitulation down here. So I think there's a few things lining up, in my opinion, just even from a technical standpoint. Fundamentally, yes, US dollar is still going to go down further, at least till they cut. If they cut 50, then definitely going to get destroyed. Yeah, so there's a few things lining up there. But for the here and now, I think there's a chance that we do see a little bit of US dollar buying sort of moving forward. So anyway, back to what we were originally talking about. Aussie, you can see this on a daily. It is sort of starting to think about it over here. If you look at, whoop, not this one. What was it doing there? If you look at where we've got that little ledge, that's also the daily lower wick. So underneath 30, we expect to sort of see a little bit of a sort of a drop down. And then we're looking at, as I said, the next one is the wick from that daily low, which is 67.13. Underneath that, I mean, it's a pretty clear-cut move down here. So 67 because it's just that round number. If you get down under 67, then 66.70. Again, it's hard to sort of see this when it's in such a strong, like, up direction, sorry, but it's overbought. It is still sort of above the line here, so it's not, and also things can stay overbought for a long time. So it's not to sort of say that okay, it has to come back, but there's certainly reason on a couple of fronts for there to be a little bit of sort of balancing. I mean, even if it's just to sort of give itself a little breather, come back here to reload to then go high, which I do believe it will do. I wouldn't rule out some sort of cooling here. I mean, it could just power right through here. But again, at some point, they're going to have to sort of cool it off a little bit. Okay, on to gold. Excuse me. So we took out highs the other night. Got a little bit of a sell down, test under 25 last night. That number that was so incredibly weak, market bounced around a bunch of times and then sort of came back up and sort of obviously sort of. So I was short gold. I was shorting from the 20s. I got off the last ones of mine in sort of mid 90s, so that worked out quite well for that little short trade there. Because remember, it's in a very strong bullish momentum. So the fact that it's sort of just cooling off a little bit, that's not. I'm not trying to pick a top to run it back down $100, but I'll take $10, $15, and I'll do that 5 or 6 or 7 times over, and then all of a sudden you've got a fairly decent combined move in terms of how many bucks it's run. So we had this little sort of channel that we were running off. So let's put it onto a lower time frame. And this is kind of the last part that I was sort of trading off this break, the retest, and then the lower low. As you can see, it stuffed around here, took a little while, didn't sort of shoot straight back up, but obviously through the rest of the night, moved up a little bit higher. We also had FOMC minutes overnight, which again were a little bit dovish. So dovish, US dollar weakness with that will give a bit of a sort of a rush, a flight from US dollar into other sort of assets and that, and obviously gold typically being one of those sort of assets. So we've seen it sort of come back up here. This is turning out to be quite a sort of quite a little sort of sticky line for it to get above. Remember, this is the breakout, and this is the first short that I took. The breakout through here, and then it's tried to hold this for a big move for the next leg up, but didn't quite get there. And then once it broke, it became the resistance. So you can see here, it was trying to hold a support, and then the people that were sort of trying to buy this to get this to launch it up over here, no, actually they're into drawdown. So they're like, screw you, I got a chance to get out, I got a chance to get out, I got a chance to get out, and they're sort of just clearing out the positions that they had from above this line over here. So look, in the immediate, it's kind of hard to sort of pick a side with gold because you got sort of combining factors. You got US dollar potentially having a little bit of a push up, which would be would be sort of gold weakness, but overall US dollar's going down. So I think it's still a buy the dip situation, but I'm waiting for a better level to buy it from. I still have an order sitting around the 80s, which I'd like to sort of get a feel. I think I moved it down. I had it at 85, which if you look at this, we can get rid of this one now. 85, so that would have just missed actually, because 85.65. So I would have missed by half a buck anyway. But I did move it down to 81 also, just to give myself a little bit of extra leeway, which is back down around these highs. That was obviously sort of on a higher time frame we're holding. So I do think that we have a little bit of a short-term sort of pullback to come. I'm done with trading it just for the moment because this is super, super choppy. And there's a probably higher chance that I'll just get caught on the wrong side of it. So I'm going to hold fire on gold, but I am looking to buy the dips, particularly if we can get down to the 80s. I think you got a little bit of the market sitting around here, which think they've survived a few attempts to come back down. I think you got to come down and wipe those out and then sort of move up. So that's my sort of look with gold at the moment. We flip on to silver. Silver's actually been performing very well. It's holding up very strongly. Like again, it's a bit choppy around here. We could see that sort of move down yesterday, which was around that sort of jobs data stuff. We saw DXY sort of fly up and then just get absolutely sort of smashed on the nose. And look, as you can see, silver dropped down, bang, came back up, took out the highs of that section there. So I do think we've got more upside with silver. But again, same with the metals. I think there could be a little bit of chop and stuffing around here, particularly with Jackson Hole coming tomorrow. I don't see a completely clear trade. Look, if you do get above, 30, that'd trigger you to the next level. But remember, we've got this big falling resistance coming in here. So this was the price target as to where it hits. Well, it doesn't matter, up and down the line along here, somewhere along there, depending on sort of when it actually gets to that point. But I think, yeah, look, we do have some upside in silver, but again, I think we could see a little bit of a shake first. If I could get it down in 29 or 28.80, preferably, I'd like to buy it there and then sort of look for that next move up to sort of break 30 and test this falling resistance. I think there's probably a little bit of a better sort of risk reward if you can get it back down, retesting these levels over here before a big move up to test that main target over there above about 30.50 or so, depending when we sort of come into contact with it. Copper is holding up again, holding up very well on that. So it's smashed into this price target level a number of times. And this is the thing why we sort of say, look, look at where it's actually bounced. This is where the sellers were, broke through, they became buyers. This is where the sellers were, sellers. So we're still bashing into this area here. So, if we do see a little bit of a stuff around, as I said, like if everything runs in line with it all, we see a little bit of this potentially for a while before it puts in a higher low and then sort of goes through. So I think sort of, as I said, with copper, I think this seems to be our little range now between 417 and 4236 or so. I'd look for when this comes in with a higher low. When this starts to break structure with a higher low in that, I think that'll be the signal that the buyers have been here. As you can see, they're here, they're here, they're here. I want to see the buyers step up and move up their bid. I think that when we see that, whether it happens here, whatever, I think that's going to be the signal that we're going to be moving up and higher, because then not only have you got the moving up the bid, you're also coming out of this big channel. And you want to see it fire out of the channel. You don't want things to just dribble out the side of a channel. That's not going to be sort of super profitable for it all. All right, still a little under the weather, so I'm going to wrap this one up pretty quick. And that we've got China doing what it does, just grinding, finding this little lower level here. Again, this is our big level to get down underneath here, 708. Once we take out those lows there, a big close down under here on a daily should be sort of seeing a little bit of a continued move to the downside. All right, quick look over the news. There's not a great deal today other than PMIs, I'm pretty sure. It's PMI Thursday. We can see Aussie came in a little bit above expectation. Was this a revision down? Yeah, revised down from last month. Came in a little bit above. Services, oh sorry, manufacturing, again revised down, came in a little bit above, but still under that 50 line. The PMIs, for the most part, don't really move too much in that till you get to the US, which is 11:45 Melbourne time tonight. So I'll be keeping an eye on these kind of things to get a general across the board feeling of how things are going to be sort of playing out. But as I said, it's not going to be the big one. The big one tomorrow, I guess, is going to be this thing, and it's a day one, day two on the Saturday. So that'll be interesting. And Powell speaking 12 o'clock Friday night for us in Melbourne, and sort of see what happens and see how that sort of affects things coming into the weekend. All right, that's it from me.